You know that feeling when something embarrassing happens and it's over in seconds, but somehow it never actually ends. You're in the shower 3 days later. You're trying to fall asleep. You're in the middle of a completely unrelated conversation. And out of nowhere, it just hits you again. That one moment. The thing you said that came out wrong. The laugh that nobody joined. The joke that fell completely flat. The time you called your teacher, Mom, in front of the whole class. And your stomach drops exactly like it did when it happened. Here's what's wild. The moment is gone. The people who were there have probably forgotten it completely. And you are still living inside it. Most people assume this means something is wrong with them. That they're too sensitive, too anxious, too stuck in the past. That mentally healthy people don't do this. And if you've ever told someone about a cringe memory that won't leave you alone, they probably said the same thing everyone always says. Just let it go. Stop overthinking. You're being way too hard on yourself, and you nodded and said you would. And then that night, lying in bed, it came back again. Here's the truth. You are not broken. You are not weak. And you are definitely not alone. What's happening inside your brain when that memory replays has a name, a reason, and a way out. And by the end of this video, that loop that's been following you around is going to start making a very different kind of sense. And before we get into it, I want to ask you something. What's your awkward moment? The one that comes back the most? Drop it in the comments. Seriously. Because every week I read through what you write down there, and the ones that stop me, the ones where I think there's an entire video in this, those become the next script. Your story could be the reason someone else finally stops feeling alone in theirs. So leave it below. And now let's talk about what's actually going on. Chapter 1. The cringe that never left. Why your brain keeps the receipt. Here's something nobody tells you. Your brain is not trying to hurt you when it replays that memory. It's trying to protect you. That's it. That's the whole thing. Your brain logged that moment as a threat. Not a lion. Not a car accident. A social threat. And your brain treats social threats like they're survival events. Because for most of human history, they were. Think about it. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small groups. Maybe 50 people. 100 at most. If you were rejected by that group, you didn't just feel bad. You died. No shelter. No food. No protection. Alone in the wild meant dead within weeks. So your brain evolved to take social rejection extremely seriously. It treats embarrassment like danger. It treats being judged the same way it treats almost stepping into traffic. The stomach drop you feel when that memory comes back. That's real. That's your threat system firing. That's the same alarm that kept your ancestors alive. Your brain is not being dramatic. It's being ancient. It just hasn't gotten the update that says you're going to survive a cringeworthy comment at a dinner party. So when that awkward moment happened, your brain took a picture. Not because it wanted to torture you later, but because it wanted to make sure you learned from it. The replay is your brain running a safety drill. It's showing you the moment again and asking, what do we do differently next time? The problem isn't that it took the picture. The problem is that it can't figure out how to file it away. And so it keeps showing it to you. Like a concerned friend who keeps bringing up the same story because they're not sure you got the lesson yet. Chapter 2. The spotlight that doesn't exist. Here's something that will genuinely change how you experience these memories. What you call embarrassment is actually a combination of two things. The actual event, and the story your brain tells you about who was watching. There's a psychological phenomenon called the spotlight effect. It means that you walk around feeling like there's a spotlight on you, following your every move, magnifying every mistake, making sure everyone in the room caught exactly what just happened. And when something embarrassing occurs, that spotlight feels absolutely blinding. You're convinced that everyone saw it, that everyone registered it, that everyone is thinking about it right now the same way you are. They're not. Here's why. Everyone else is standing in their own spotlight. They're too busy wondering if their hair looks weird, if they said something odd, if people notice them stumble over their words in the last sentence. Their attention is pointed almost entirely at themselves, not at you. The room full of people you're still mortified in front of. Most of them moved on before they even left the room. There was a study where researchers had people wear an embarrassing shirt into a room and estimate how many people would remember seeing it. People consistently overestimated by almost double. In reality, barely anyone noticed. And the ones who did notice forgot almost immediately. Because they were busy thinking about themselves. Your spotlight is real to you. but it's invisible to almost everyone else. The audience your brain keeps performing the worst version of this memory to. They've already left the theater. You're doing a show for an empty room. Chapter 3. The secondary cringe. Why it gets worse before it gets better. Here's what nobody warns you about. The more you try to stop thinking about it, the more you think about it. And this is not a personal failing. This is basic brain science. There's a famous psychological experiment. A researcher named Daniel Wegner asked people to do one simple thing. Don't think about a white bear. Just for 5 minutes. Don't let a white bear enter your mind. And what happened? People thought about white bears constantly. The harder they tried not to, the more the white bear showed up. Wegner called this ironic process theory. It basically means that the act of suppressing a thought makes that thought more active, not less. Every time you cringe and try to shove that memory down, you are making it stronger. Every time you say to yourself, stop thinking about it, your brain hears. Keep thinking about this important thing that apparently needs suppression. The fight against the memory is actually what keeps the memory loud. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. You can do it. But the moment your attention slips, that ball shoots back to the surface harder than before. And you've been holding that ball down for months, maybe years. No wonder you're exhausted. The way out is not down. It's through. And I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a minute. Chapter 4. The real reason some people cringe harder than others. Not everyone replays embarrassing moments the same way. You've probably noticed this. Some people can trip in public, laugh about it, and genuinely never think about it again. And then there's you, still awake at 2 a.m. reliving a comment you made 2 Thursdays ago. And if you've ever felt broken because of that difference, here's what you need to understand. Some brains are built with a more sensitive receiver. Scientists have a term for this. They call it vantage sensitivity, which just means that some nervous systems pick up more information than others. Think of it like radios. Most radios get the basic signal, but some radios are built to pick up the faint frequencies too. The background stuff, the subtle things, more of everything gets through. If you have a high sensitivity nervous system, that awkward moment didn't just wash over you the way it might for someone else. It went in deep. You caught the micro expression that flickered across someone's face for half a second. You registered the slight shift in the room's energy. You noticed the pause before the response. You felt the temperature of the moment change. And all of that data got stored. Which means when your brain replays the event, it's replaying a much richer file than most people are working with. Of course, it takes longer to process. The file is bigger. This is also why beautiful things hit you harder. Why music can move you in ways other people don't quite understand. Why you feel other people's pain like it's your own. Why a kind word from someone you respect can stay with you for weeks. The same sensitivity that makes the cringe louder also makes the joy deeper and the connection more real. You cannot have one without the other. The receiver doesn't get to choose what it picks up. It's just sensitive. Chapter 5. The identity hijack. What the memory is really saying. Here's something worth sitting with. Most embarrassing memories don't just feel bad because of what happened. They feel bad because of what they seem to say about you. The comment that landed wrong doesn't just feel awkward. It feels like evidence. Evidence that you're socially incompetent, that you're unlikable, that you don't belong, that other people can see something broken in you that you've been trying to hide. That's the real loop. Not the memory itself. The meaning your brain attached to it. It's like your brain took a single frame from a very long film and decided this frame is who you are. Not the thousands of other frames where we're funny, warm, thoughtful, and exactly right. Just this one. This frame where you stumbled. And it keeps showing you that frame and saying, see, this is you. This is called negative self-referential processing, which is a complicated way of saying your brain got stuck using a bad moment to define your whole identity. And the tricky part is that the more you replay the memory, the more that definition feels true, because repetition feels like evidence. The more you see something, the more real it becomes. But here's the question your brain is never asking when it runs the replay. Is this one moment actually representative of who you are? Or is it just a moment? One data point in a life made up of thousands of data points. A stumble doesn't make you someone who always stumbles. A silence that went too long doesn't make you someone who never says the right thing. You are not the worst version of one of your worst moments. Chapter 6. The cringe loop. How to actually break it. So now you understand why the memory keeps coming back. It's your brain running a safety drill on a social threat it hasn't fully processed. It's a rich file that hasn't been filed properly. It's identity meaning attached to a single frame. And it keeps looping because you've been fighting it instead of finishing it. So here's how you actually break the loop. Not with willpower. With design. The first thing that works is called completion, not suppression. Your brain keeps replaying the memory because it hasn't finished processing it. The way to help it finish is not to avoid the memory. It's to move through it once with full attention. And then close it. Here's exactly what that looks like. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Sit somewhere quiet. Let the memory come. Don't push it away. Watch it like you're watching it happen to someone else. And then name what you actually felt in that moment. Not just embarrassed. Be specific. I felt humiliated because I thought they saw me as stupid. I felt ashamed because I wanted to impress that person and I didn't. I felt scared because I thought this might change how they see me. That act of naming it specifically, psychologists call this effect labeling, and what it means in plain terms is putting precise words to your feelings. It doesn't sound like much, but it actually reduces the emotional charge the memory carries. It's like releasing pressure from a valve. The feeling doesn't disappear, but it stops having the same grip, and your brain, having been genuinely heard rather than shushed, is more likely to let the file settle. The second thing that works is rewriting the meaning, not the memory. You can't change what happened, but you can change what it means. Take that single frame your brain keeps showing you, the one it's been calling evidence of who you are, and ask yourself one question. If a friend told me they had this exact moment, would I use it to define their entire personality? Of course not. You'd say it happens to everyone. You'd say it doesn't mean anything about who they are. You'd say one awkward moment isn't a verdict. And you would be right. Give yourself the same basic fairness you would give anyone you love. The third thing that works is called the camera pull back. Your brain is showing you the memory like an extreme close-up, every detail magnified. The expression on their face, the exact words, the specific silence that followed. Pull the camera back. What else was happening that day? What were you carrying into that moment that had nothing to do with them? What was everyone else in that room actually focused on? What would a stranger watching that scene have thought if they passed through for 10 seconds and kept walking? The memory looks different when it's one small part of an entire scene instead of the only thing in the frame. Chapter 7. The identity shift. Who you are when the cringe stops defining you. Here's the part that matters most. Habits stick when they become identity. And the same is true for mental patterns. As long as you see yourself as someone who can't let embarrassing moments go, you're going to keep struggling to let embarrassing moments go. The identity and the behavior reinforce each other in a circle. But there's a different identity available. Not someone who never gets embarrassed. Everyone gets embarrassed. But someone who knows what embarrassment actually is. Someone who understands that the cringe is an ancient alarm system doing its ancient job. Someone who can feel the memory come up and say, I see you. I know what you are. You're a safety drill. And I don't need a drill right now. Someone who knows that one bad frame doesn't make the film. Every time you sit with a memory, instead of fighting it, you cast a vote for that identity. Every time you name the feeling instead of burying it, you cast a vote. Every time you pull the camera back and see the moment as one frame in a long life, you cast a vote. The votes add up. Not because any single one was transformative, but because the accumulation of them changes what you believe about yourself. You are not someone who can't move on. You are someone who was built to feel deeply and process thoroughly. That's not a curse. That's just what a sensitive receiver does. It takes longer to file things away because it picks up more. That's not failure. That's the cost and the gift of being someone who actually experiences their life instead of skating over the surface of it. Chapter 8. The thing you've been avoiding. There's a reason some memories loop louder than others. And it's not always about the moment itself. Sometimes it's about what the moment touched. What it reminded you of. What old wound it accidentally pressed on. Your coworker made one mildly dismissive comment, and 3 days later you still can't shake it. But your brain isn't really still processing the comment. It's still processing the version of that feeling from when you were 9 and your parents dismissed something that mattered to you. Or the time in school when you raised your hand and the room laughed. Or the relationship where you were made to feel like too much. The recent awkward moment just happened to unlock a door that was already there. This is what psychologists sometimes call a trigger. but not in the overwrought sense the word usually gets used. Just in the simple sense that something in the present activated something from the past. And what's actually looping isn't just this moment. It's this moment plus every moment before it that felt like this. That's why it's heavier than it seems like it should be. Because it is heavier than it seems like it should be. It's carrying more than its own weight. You don't have to excavate your entire history to feel better. But it helps to ask yourself honestly, when I feel what I feel when this memory comes up, does this feeling feel familiar? Have I felt exactly this before? And if the answer is yes, where? Because when you can see that the weight belongs partly to the past and not entirely to this moment, the moment itself becomes lighter. The coworker's comment becomes just a comment, not a confirmation of everything you've ever feared about yourself. Just a comment from someone who was probably distracted and not thinking carefully about how they sounded. Chapter 9. What to do the next time it happens. So the memory is going to come back. Not because you failed, because that's how brains work when they're still processing something. The question is what you do when it shows up. And now you have something to actually do with it. When the memory comes, don't fight it. Don't stuff it down. Don't tell yourself to stop thinking about it. That's the beach ball technique, and it does not work. Instead, say this to yourself, and you can say it quietly inside your head or write it down, whatever works for you. You can say, there it is. I know what you are. You're my brain running a safety drill on a social moment it hasn't finished filing. Your ancient protection software. I hear you. I'm not in danger. I don't need the drill right now. And then name the actual feeling underneath it. Not just embarrassed. Get specific. Humiliated. Scared. Like I don't belong. Like they saw something I was trying to hide. Put the real word on it. Because the real word has less power than the vague dread does. Then pull the camera back. Remind yourself of the spotlight effect. The audience has already left. The people in that room are running their own replay on their own moments right now. You are not the star of their internal theater. You never were. And finally, ask yourself the question that actually closes the file. What, if anything, is actually useful in this memory? Is there a real signal here? Something to genuinely learn, adjust, do differently? If yes, take it. Write it down if you need to. Use it. If no, if the replay is just noise, if there's nothing left to learn, and it's just looping on its own momentum now, then you are officially allowed to let it go. You don't have to force it to disappear. You just have to stop feeding it. Stop running the story. Stop rehearsing the comeback. Stop imagining the version where you said the perfect thing. Close the file. The drill is over. You're safe. Chapter 10. The self-talk that changes everything. Here's a script you can use. Words you can actually say to yourself when the cringe comes back tonight or tomorrow, or whenever it decides to show up again. You can say, I am someone who feels things deeply. That's why this memory has weight. It is not evidence of who I am. It is one moment in a life made of thousands of moments. The people who were there have moved on. My brain is doing its job. I don't have to fight it. I'm going to take what's useful and release what isn't. I'm not broken. I'm processing. And processing takes the time it takes. I have time. Say it slowly, breathe out at the end. Not because it magically erases the memory, but because you are literally changing the conversation happening inside your head. You are replacing the story your brain keeps telling with a truer story. One that doesn't use a single frame to define the whole film. One that gives you the same grace you would give anyone you love. If this video was useful, there's a free guide linked in the description. It's called the Cringe Loop Reset. It walks you through exactly what we covered today, step by step, with simple prompts you can use the next time a memory gets stuck. No fluff. Just the practical part. It's free. It's below. And one more thing before you go. If your brain does this with embarrassing memories, there's a good chance it also does something else. It replays conversations before they happen. It rehearses what you're going to say. It scripts your responses before the other person has even spoken. And then when the real conversation doesn't go according to the script, something in you panics. There's a video on this channel about exactly that. It's linked right here. Watch that next. Because the loop that keeps you stuck in the past and the loop that keeps you stuck in imaginary futures come from the same place. And once you see that, both of them start losing their grip. I'll see you there.